Welcome to the Property Nomads Podcast. Welcome to 53 games, 53 countries. This is the start of, dare I label this, a football series, although we're probably not going to be speaking too much about football per se. The memories of the early games are few and far between, although Aaron thankfully has found a lot of photos and little reports that we'd written from years gone by. As mentioned in last week's episode, we're visiting Turin in 2023, so we'll be sort of getting out and about there finally again to experience new places, and we look forward to reporting back on that in due course. And as also mentioned, the next couple of months are going to be going back over the years, looking at things that we've done, places that we've been to. Yes, it revolves around football. That being said, we're not going to go to, this isn't a football podcast. We're not going to go in depth into the games itself. It's more jogging the memory of the place, not necessarily the games. Well, all of this football idea started, well, really, Aaron and I both love football. Both love football, both Liverpool fans. I'm a Reading fan as well. Please don't hold any of that against me. And when we were chatting at university, we thought actually the idea of, going away for a weekend, going to a complete random place, seeing a game of football, having a couple of beers, having a laugh, bit of food, why not? What's not to like about that? Lads' holidays, as they say. Yeah, so that was the idea. What's not to like about that? And from there, someone came up with the idea of, well, actually, wouldn't it be a good idea to go and see a game of football in every European country? Great, yeah, brilliant. What an idea. That's a great idea. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so how do we do that? What constitutes a European country? Now, rather than get into the sovereignty of various places in and around Europe, we thought we'd keep it quite simple in terms of if the country participates in the European section of World Cup qualifying, then as far as we're concerned, they're part of UEFA, the European governing body of football, and therefore we would go. So that meant that, for example, countries that participate in the European qualification would be Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Israel, all these sorts of places. Now, if you look at a map, you'd probably look at a map and go, there's no chance that they're in Europe. Absolutely not. Some of them are so far east, it's unbelievable. But that was the parameter. That was a lot easier than sitting down going, well, let's look at all the sovereignty of these places. Do we rule out principalities? If we do, then we're not going to go to Wales or Liechtenstein or Monaco for that reason. What if a place doesn't have a league? All of these things. So we kept it easy. If they participate in European qualification for the World Cup under UEFA, therefore we will go and see a football game in that country. Absolutely fine. We then spent probably quite a while going through the list of countries, writing them down and going through teams that we'd like to see. This wasn't necessarily about going to see the best team. This was about, does this team have a new stadium, or does this team play in a part of this country that we'd like to go to? Because normally you think of a country and you normally think of capital cities straight away. You say England, you say London, you say France, Paris, for example. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're the best places to visit. It's always nice to go off the beaten track. And looking at the list, because Aaron dug it up, some of the teams and the places we got down are fascinating. Bear in mind, we would have done this in 2009, 2010. So quite a while ago we wrote this, and if you know your football, if you like your football, you'd appreciate that some of this is a bit strange. But going through the list, I'm not going to read out every single country, there's no point. But for example, in Austria we put Salzburg, meant to be a nice place, why not? For Belgium we put down Standard Liège. So Liège, again, it's meant to be a really nice place. I've actually heard reports that Antwerp's actually even better. Hey ho, we'll find out one day. Czech Republic, Sparta Prague, quite a straightforward one. In England, we put down Man City. At the time, they'd just been taken over. So there's a bit of a buzz and excitement around the club back then. Obviously, there still is nowadays. For France, we put Marseille. For Germany, we said 1860 Munich. We wanted to go to the Allianz, but we thought Bayern Munich would be too typical. And at the time, 1860 were playing at the Allianz Stadium. In Italy, we said Inter Milan or Internazionale. Spain, we said Barcelona. So some of them are obvious. Some of them aren't. Portugal, we put Porto, and in Northern Ireland we put Linfield. Linfield are based in Belfast. So we came up with a whole list. A couple of the countries we had to do, we said international. So we come up with some ground rules before we set off on the first trip. So they were that Rob and Aaron must attend. So myself and Aaron, we must attend. If other people wanted to join, absolutely fine, no problem at all. We must provide a photo of the stadium, and if there was a crowd at the game, we must provide a photo of the crowd. Ideally take a selfie as well to prove that we were there. The game must be a professional competitive game, so no pre-season friendlies, it could be none of that, it has to be a proper competitive game. If the country doesn't have a league, then we're allowed to see an international game. So, for example, to the best of my knowledge, Andorra and Liechtenstein do not have leagues. I believe Andorra, the team Andorra, play in the Spanish system, and FC Vaduz being the capital of Liechtenstein, they play in the Swiss system. So for those two particular countries, we would be allowed to see the international teams. We must buy a club pin badge. They're quite common in England, but actually going away abroad, they're not always the most common of things to find. But we must buy one anyway, so we must try and find one, a little memento. And we must try local beer and food speciality. Now, they were the basic ground rules, not an issue. We also came up with a rating system. So we would be looking at what was a game like, what was a stadium like, what was the travel like around the city or town where we were, what was the overall experience. And it was good fun to, do that back in the day. Why did we do this? Well, we wanted to write a book, 53 games, 53 countries. And we wanted to just go around Europe, travel from A to B, watch football and hang out. In fairness, we will probably, I imagine at some point as property and whatnot develops, and there's even more income coming in, that will give us even more time freedom, and we'll probably start over again because we'll just probably go from A to B to C and do it straight away. Because looking at some of these old games, and that's what next week's episode will be looking at, we'll be looking at the very start of doing this potential book. We're talking games that are 12, 13 years old, 2010, 2011. So the memory's a bit hazy, to say the least. That's why we're going to plough a few into next week's episode. But point being, this was where it all started. So, but spare time at university, both love football, both like the idea of going around to various parts of Europe, going to various towns, cities, watching football. Doesn't have to be the best quality football, doesn't have to be the best teams. It's just that, from listening to the travel episodes, you notice about the experience of going out in the first place. It's part of the fun. It really is. And some places will be better than others. And, do you know what? You're going to get stories. And that's the thing. From listening to other people talk about travel and from ourselves talking about travel as well, you get the stories. And from the stories, you get the memories. And they're the things that are important, things that are up in your head. So there we are. That's 53 games, 53 countries. That's the initial idea. All of that being said, I have a feeling since we wrote the book, Gibraltar have been accepted to be part of UEFA. Again, is it a country? Is it not a country? They do qualify for World Cups, they attempt to qualify for World Cups under the UEFA banner. So actually, 53 games, 53 countries might be 54 games, 54 countries. Thinking about it, that's how much time difference there is. But next week we will go through the very early games. So we will look at the 3 M's, Manchester, Munich and Milan. And from there, we will then head over to Wales, believe it or not. That's one of the first countries that we went to. And then from there, again, rather than go through every single place that we've been, we will then start going into the archives of some of the craziest games of football that we've seen and some of the craziest places that we've been. So there's a travel. Looking forward to recording this. You're probably not going to see me on the video doing this, but I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat. So enjoy and see you next week when we will start with a thoroughly turgid game in Manchester. Hasta luego.